Okay, so I'm in Bowie, Texas now. When last we met, I was in Louisville. What's wrong with these people that don't know how to merge onto a road? My gosh. Anyway, this is Bowie, Texas. We've been here before. I've actually shown you this before, but I'm going to show you the world's biggest Bowie knife. It's right here. That's kind of cute. And of course, Bowie, Texas is named after Jim Bowie, the frontiersman. And the Bowie knife is the namesake of Jim Bowie, obviously. I'm not sure why this is called Bowie, if he was from here or whatever. I'll have to look that up and see. Or you can look it up, Google it and see what the deal is. I'm not sure what connection he had to this area. But it could be that he lived around here somewhere. I don't know. I'm extremely happy. I haven't had any more jobs crop up. So I'm actually done for the week. Thank God. It's about 4 o'clock. Friday afternoon. I'm pretty sure I've moved 9 or 10 trailers this week. Most of them were one at a time. I only had one set of doubles, and that was just a little stack of 2 utility trailers. So I actually did as well this week as I did going all the way back east and doing a long haul. Here a few months ago, it was like a $4,400 job. That was before my 10% and all that. So I think this is going to be comparable. So this is a really good week. I needed this desperately. I've got to get the bank account built back up now that I spent all the money that I had in the bank. And I got to spend more money Monday getting this in and getting the front end worked on. There's really nothing wrong with it, but it looked a little worn to Bill, so we're going to get in and have them do some preemptive work. Guess maybe the tie rod ends need done. Which is not that big of a deal. It's that, and then maybe check the alignment. I think the alignment's good. I'm not having any alignment issues that I can tell. It handles really well. Funny thing about this truck is the more I drive it, the better it's been driving. I don't know if it's just been sitting for a long time and hadn't had the cobwebs blown out of it. And that could be. But it's every time I drive it, it seems like it runs better. Now, one of the things I've been doing, which I did with the other truck a little bit, is putting Hot Shot Secret in the diesel. Bill said with this one, because it's an older diesel, and the diesel that we had back then was different than it is now, you need that Hot Shot Secret in it all the time. So I've been adding that to every tank of gas or every tank of diesel since I started driving it. And sure enough, I think it's keeping it nice and clean and lubricated, because it feels smooth. It sounds really good. This morning, where I delivered my trailer to, first thing this morning, and picked up my second trailer, all the yard guys came over and looking at the truck. One of them commented on how good it sounds, and it does. It's really got a nice old-fashioned diesel sound to it. Well, it's just kind of smooth. It's a nice buttery sound. And I think that's probably attributable to that Hot Shot Secret in the diesel that I've been running through it. So I'm going to continue doing that. It was a good idea. I guess what it does is it provides a little extra lubrication to the engine components. That's probably always a good thing, keeps things running smoother. Less wear and tear. So this is the last leg of my journey, my week-long journey. I just turned onto Highway 81. I've been on Highway 287. I came up I-35, cut across on 380 over to 287, and now I'm on 81. And that's how you get back from Dallas if you're coming the back way. So right now I'm 81 miles from the house. So I'm getting pretty close. So I was closer to the house than this yesterday. I was actually in Marlow on my way through with that trailer that I picked up in Oklahoma City yesterday afternoon. So it was one of those deals. I was so close to home, I kind of wanted to just go home and stay home, get a good bath, you know, that kind of thing. Well, I'll get to do that today. Couldn't do it yesterday because I still had to get my work done for the week. But I kind of impressed myself a little bit. I don't want to get all braggy or anything, but I did good this week. I moved a lot of trailers and logged a lot of miles and earned a lot of money. So, you know, it's the whole point of being out here doing this. If I wasn't making money doing it, I might still do it. You know, if somebody else was paying for the diesel and paying for the truck and all that. But as far as, you know, with me paying the bill for all that, the only reason for me to do that is to make it a money-making venture. Otherwise, I could be sitting at home, you know, feeding chickens and doing cryptic crosswords on the internet or some such thing. So anyway, that little place I was telling you about, it's a town up here. It's about 10 miles, I think, from where we're at now. So I'll go ahead and get up here. But I want you to see this little house. It just gets my imagination going. You know, somebody living in a little bitty place like this and just making it so creatively and so artistically. It's just really kind of cool. And like I said, it's just a ruin. It's all it is just the stone walls is all that's left of it. But it's just really neat. Been looking at it for years and years every time I go through here. That is a pet and horse cemetery right there. I didn't know they had horse cemeteries. I knew they had pet cemeteries. Burying a horse is a big job. I don't know about that. I'm not sure what most people do have horses that die, but I know some places you have to have somebody come in and haul them off, because you can't just have a horse carcass laying out there in your little 2-acre pasture or whatever. But where I grew up, we had 160 acres. Well, my grandmother had 160 acres. We lived on 10 acres of that in the northeast corner. And we had a couple horses die out there, you know, of old age or whatever. And they were just off out in the acreage, so we didn't worry about it. You know, thyme and vultures and all that took care of the carcass. As weird as that may sound to somebody who's not been on a farm, but you don't go around burying farm animals usually. You know, there's enough stuff out there that will eat the flesh off of them. Kind of the natural process. Same thing like with old cows when they die. People don't bury their old cows. They just leave them there, and time takes care of the problem. But you've got enough land where you're not sitting downwind from it, looking at it all day either, usually. And if they keel over too close to the house, you can always drag the carcass, back over the hill, so that nature can take its course out of sight. That's what most people probably do, that are actually out on any amount of land. How's that work for a weird topic, huh? This stretch at 81 is kind of odd to me. The speed limit up here is 75 miles an hour, which is higher speed limit than the interstate on this little 2-lane road. I very rarely run 75 on it. I'll run 70. But 75 just seems excessive to me. But then some of these people get behind me and they want to run 75. I'm like, well, go for it, but you got to go around me to do it. Because I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not in that big of a hurry anyway. Then once I get up here to Oklahoma, the speed will drop down to 65, which I think is quite a bit more reasonable for the size and condition of this road. All this along here, Highway 81 follows roughly the route of the old Chisholm Trail. And that goes for down here in Texas too. It goes from here clear up just pretty much right by our house, where they used to run them through there, because I'm sure they ran them in the flat ground between town and the hill that we live up on, or the ridge, kind of a ridge that rises up there. So I imagine they ran the cattle right through there. So it's kind of a cattle highway, I guess. Well, anyway, this is Stoneburg. This is what I was telling you about, this old stone house. Now, I don't know who owns the house or anything, and I'm not going to, go over there and trespass, but I am going to get close enough that you can see the ruins of this old house and kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. I just think this place is so neat. Well, actually, it looks like there's a business back in there, a barbecue place. So I guess maybe we will go in. So I want you to see this, because it's not just stones that make up this house. It's also blocks of glass, big blocks of green glass, and some other stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and turn around in here. Okay, they're closed. That works for my purposes, I suppose. So this is the house that I'm telling you about here. As you can see, it's just a ruin. There's no roof. But look at how this thing's built. It's just awesome. And then you can see in here these big chunks of green glass by the door and little round windows. I mean, what a cool place, huh? Just really a neat old place. Of course, it's got Virginia creeper growing all up over it. Just pretty awesome. But I just wanted to show you that. I think there's some petrified wood in there. Yeah, there is, actually. I'm gonna get down here and back up and aim this a little better so you can see on this end of it. There's a couple of big chunks of petrified wood in there. There's one over the window, and then there's several in the wall in other spots, but I want you to see this because this is really unique. And then of course it's mixed in with all this green glass. Just really super cool. See what I mean? The petrified wood in there's some for the lintel over the window, and then there's some, you can see it in the wall at funny angles. And there's a white rock over there. It looks like some kind of limestone. It's almost shaped like a cat. And then the big chunks of green glass. So just a really neat place. Now I could probably see me getting a hold of something like that and then redoing it and living in it. I would do something like that if it was just me. If I didn't have to convince anybody else to do it. But I just think that's the neatest thing. I love that old house. So that's in Stoneburg, Texas. Stoneburg, S-T-O-N-E-B-U-R-G. And right here, we're probably, I don't know, 20 miles south of the Red River. Got to watch your speed through here because it is a school zone. I got somebody crawling up my butt in a school zone, thinking they're going to be all cute and smarmy. So, yeah, whatever. Sorry, get that camera adjusted back on the road. So I'm hoping that the camera quality is better. I don't know, that windshield looks kind of dirty over there. Okay, guy, good. Get off me. He was like up my butt. I couldn't even see him back there. He was coming up so close on my back of my truck. And I knew he was there, but I couldn't really see him. So glad he's gone. This is kind of interesting territory out here because this is like the dividing line between grassy, tree-covered East Texas and mesquite-covered, open West Texas. Like where we were out in West Texas the other day where it's just flat and some mesquite. Well, this is kind of like in between the two. On one hand, you got the mesquite and the flat. On the other hand, you still got some trees and some hills. So it's kind of right in that border in between the two different types of terrain. I'm curious about what this guy's doing. Oh, he's picking cactus. I don't know if he's picking prickly pear or what he's doing. Some yuppie looking guy out there with a paper sack picking something off cactus plants. He might be getting cactus blooms. Or the things you eat off the prickly pears. I wouldn't be doing it without gloves on though. They are still cactus. They'll jab the hell out of you. I thought maybe he was out there rock hunting or something, but I was being snoopy. Like, oh, is there something out there worth going and looking at? Strange to me too because I mean running through here yesterday on the road going south it looks completely different to me than it does when I'm headed north on the same road. For some reason, it looks like, just it looks completely different. I guess it's because the backdrop is so different. When you're heading down to Bowie from the north, from the Red River, you can kind of see the mesas and buttes over by Bowie, and you can kind of see that you've got more of a view. This way, it's not so much. You're climbing, going uphill to the bluffs by the Red River, so it just gives it a completely different look. But I really like this area. I know they've got quite a bit of wild hogs running down in here because I've seen some out here hit on the road. Even as long ago as 10 years ago, they were getting hit down here. Now we're getting them right up in our area. It's something we never saw up there before. Till just lately, there was a big one, I guess, run over on the road that's just a half-mile south of our house. So the hogs are definitely moving into that turf now too. They're probably not going to come up on our place so much because we don't have water. We're up more on a hill. They like to follow the creeks and stay in the fields where there's something to root around and eat. That's not to say that they won't come up there, but there's just not that much up there for them. Not as much as like, having a pond or a source of water, something like that. And I have thought about cutting in a pond on our place. I don't know how much water it would actually collect though. We do get quite a bit of water in the terraces when it rains. But I don't know about enough to keep a pond full through the whole summer. It might work part of the year. If we had livestock out there to worry about, we might do that. Bill has talked about maybe getting a calf or two. I never dealt with cattle much, but Grandma had cattle. But I never personally did anything. I'd feed them when somebody told me to. That was about it. I didn't really know anything about taking care of them or what the whole system is, what the setup is. But evidently you can get like a half-grown calf or something, and you take it and you feed it, and then you take it to sale and sell it, or you butcher it, one of the two. And Bill's done that. He did that all the time when he was a kid. So that might be something he wants to do now that he's feeling better. We get our fencing situation sorted out. The place needs new fences. It needs a new fence across the front. And then if we're going to run cattle or something, we need to put a secondary fence just to keep them out of the yard. Keep them off, to the sides or whatever. So we'd have to decide where to fence, how much to fence out for the house as opposed to for the cattle. Which that'd be fine with me. I don't have any problem with that. I just don't want to be the one taking care of them. I'm just not that interested in staying home and taking care of cattle right now. Now that could change if it gets to where I can't do this and I'm home anyway. Then it probably wouldn't bother me, except then I'd get to know them, so I'd have to sell them. I wouldn't be able to butcher them. I'd hate to have to, make a pet out of Frank and Joe, our pet steers or whatever, and then have to butcher them and eat them. But I could sell them, I guess, and not feel too bad about it. I know it's kind of funny, but that's like the chickens. I would hate to have to eat our chickens. Of course, the ones we've got aren't eating chickens anyway. They're egg-laying chickens. But we originally had like six. Okay, hang on a minute. Hello. doing? What are you doing? Yes, I'm 65 miles out. Yeah, and I'm ready to be, huh? Am I what? Oh yeah. Yeah, I've been done since about 2 o'clock. Yeah, I think I delivered 10 trailers this week. Yeah. That was mostly one at a time. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just a ringgold. I'm gonna cross the Red River here in about, I don't know, 6 or 7 more miles. Get back into Oklahoma. So I'm quite a bit farther north than I was when that came in. I'm just getting ready to cross the road up here at Waurika, Oklahoma. I'm about 40 miles from home is all. Thank God. I'm ready to be home. So this intersection is where 81, which is the road I'm on, intersects with Highway 70, which runs east and west across the bottom tier of Oklahoma. So, for example, if I took a ride up here and got on 70 and stayed on it for about, well, I don't know, 60, 65 miles, I'd be in Ardmore, Oklahoma. Well, I'm not going that way, but that's where I would be if I did. If, on the other hand, I went left, I could run it clear over to far southeastern or southwestern Oklahoma and then dump out down near Childress, Texas. You have to eventually turn south and cross the river over there. It doesn't run clear across the whole state. I think it only runs over as far as maybe Frederick, that vicinity, and then you have to turn south and get across the river. But anyway, that's Highway 70, which is what we're getting ready to cross up here. And this little town is Waurika. This is like the eastern edge of Waurika. It's not really the town itself. Of course, I've been over that already. The town's actually farther west of us, another mile over. This is kind of part of it. I don't even know if that motel is open or functional or any of that. Never tried to stay there. I do not know. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like there's anybody there. There's not much going on down here, out on this highway anyway. A little tired sitting in this truck, I can tell you. Kind of over it. in this cab. It's very tight quarters. And I've been in here all week, so I'm ready to get out. I'm way over this. I'll be chomping at the bit come Tuesday, though. Get back at it. I guess that's how you know if your occupation suits you. You know, you always are happy to start back up at the beginning of your work week. Or just happy to go to work every day. Which I mostly am. And it's so much nicer now that I eliminated all the stress. I mean, pretty much all the stress is gone. Everything that stressed me out about this job has been eliminated. And now I can just enjoy it, which is awesome. The stress and a lot of the expense. A lot of expense is gone. I just saw something that kind of cracked me up. There's a farm back there that had a name over the gate. It wasn't the people's name, it was like a made-up name for the place. And that's something that I've seen a lot, where people move from the city out to the country and then they think they got to name their farm or whatever. It's kind of funny to me. They give it some fanciful name. Most farmers don't do that. I mean, they may have a name for their ranch or their farm, but it's not like something cutesy. It's usually their name. So-and-so's farm or so-and-so's ranch or such and such ranch, whatever. You know, the Rock and R, or, you know, based on their brand, something like that. But yeah, when I see something like that where it's got some fanciful name, you know, like Peaceful Haven or whatever, you know, I'm just making that up. So I don't want to say the name of it that they had up there because, you know, I don't want to like openly mock them. I think it's dumb, kind of. I mean, I get it, but it's like, it makes me feel like they just moved out of a condo onto a piece of ground and they think they got to name it and make a big deal about it. And I guess they kind of probably do. There's nothing wrong with it. It just cracks me up because, you know, I never knew anybody when I was growing up that named their farm anything but so-and-so's farm. If they even did that. We'd usually just say, oh, over at such and such place, Brown's place or Jones's place or whatever. So it kind of tickles me. I know, it's a borderline mean to be amused by that, I guess, but and I guess I'm kind of borderline mean, kind of a borderline mean girl. I don't know. Never really thought of myself as a mean girl. So I was usually defending the girls that were getting picked on. That was more my role. So I got picked on plenty myself, so, you know, I'm talking now, I've reverted completely to like when I was in school. From grade school on up, I always ended up hanging out with the girls that weren't the mean girls. Usually the nice girls that were, you know, just getting picked on and abused by the mean girls. And I would stand up for them because I thought it was bullshit that the mean girls were picking on them. So I don't really consider myself a mean girl, but maybe that was like a half mean girl. kind of thing to think. I don't know. Could have been. This is Addington, one of the coolest antique shops I know of. It's right back there. Another big spot on the Chisholm Trail. The Chisholm Trail ran a few miles out east of here. Didn't run right through Addington, but it ran out over there somewhere. Over to our right. And the reason I know that is because there's a monument on a hill up there about 2 miles east of Addington that marks it. There was a hill that this monument sits up on, so I'm sure it was some kind of a landmark for them, so they knew they were going the right way. There are not a lot of obvious landmarks in this country, and that surely would have been one. So you can see it from a long way off. I expect that must have been just a terrible, miserable existence, driving cattle up the Chisholm Trail. Between the heat and the cold and the bugs and the unrelenting sun, I just can't imagine that it could have been very much fun at all. And crossing all these little creeks and these creek beds, I mean, it's pretty twisted up, gnarly stuff they had to cross through, at least until they got a trail beat through it. I imagine it was not easy. If you look at some of this terrain now, I mean, just walking through some of this stuff, look how thick these trees are. You know, they get down around these creeks and all that stuff grows up. It's kind of interesting to me that there are old maps on the internet that you can look up. And I can't remember, I think they might be on an Alabama university site or something, but they're historical maps of Oklahoma and other places. But you can look back at the roads that were used in Oklahoma Territory, or in Indian Territory, way before statehood, like in the 1820s and 1830s. And there was a couple of main roads. There was one that went from Fort Arbuckle and Ardmore up to Fort Sill. So the forts had roads going to them. Obviously they had to move troops and horses and food and you know, all of the above. And they were usually situated on a full-time creek, so they had water. Fort Arbuckle was on Wild Horse Creek, which is a creek that starts, the headwaters of that are in Marlow, not too far from my house. And then of course you got Fort Sill, which is not too far off of Cache Creek. And Cache Creek is one of the bigger drainages in this part of the country, as is Wild Horse. So it's kind of interesting the way those roads ran back then. And a road back then, I'm going to guess, wasn't like a road that we would imagine as a road. It was probably more like, if they moved wagons over them, it's probably like 2 ruts where all the wagons pulled in line, and then maybe like bare trails on the sides of it for the unharnessed horses or whatever livestock they were driving. But there were roads all over this territory. It's just, they weren't obviously anything like what we have now. But it's interesting to see the paths they took. The road from Fort Arbuckle to Fort Sill ran along the south side of Wild Horse Creek all the way up to Rush Springs, which makes sense because by the time you get to Rush Springs, you're past the headwaters of the creek. You never have to cross the creek to follow that road. You just stay on the south side of the creek, and then it would turn into the west side of the creek, and then you'd be in Rush Springs, and you'd go over from Rush Springs to Fort Sill. So I mean, they did kind of pick the path of least resistance, which makes absolute sense when all you've got to navigate the road is either horses or feet. Horses, oxen, or feet, I guess I should say, maybe mules. It's like when some of my ancestors came up into this country, they came up in the winter time, and I cannot imagine how cold that must have been, because they crossed the Red River on ice. They walked across the Red River, drove their wagons right across it in their stock. They had cattle and wagons and stuff. So, and I think they crossed, I don't know if they crossed like down in here. They probably did cross down here somewhere, because they ended up up near Velma, which is out east of Duncan about 20 miles. And they lived in a half dugout home for the first year or two they were there, and then they moved on up to Rush Springs and I guess probably built a house or found a house. But they were in here before white people were actually allowed to be in here and own land anyway. But they did come in, and they worked with some of the Indian people that were already here. My grandpa's grandpa worked for a man named Cochran, who was married to an Indian lady. And she had quite a bit of land in her name, so they lived on her land, I guess, and Mr. Cochran set up a store and a post office. Well, the name on the post office was Burt. It was Burt Indian Territory was the name of the little town, because as the story goes, my grandpa's grandpa and his brother were both Burts. That was their last name, Burt, B-U-R-T. They built the building that the store and the post office were housed in, so they were carpenters, among other things. But they worked for Mr. Cochran, and Mr. Cochran owned land because, by way of his wife being a member of the Indian Nation, the Choctaw Nation, I think. It was Choctaw. And of course, she owned the land, so he, they were married, so he owned the land. And he was somewhat of a businessman, I guess, from the sounds of things. Well, fuel is still way too high here. It's $5.50 or $4.59. It was $4.14 down in Dallas. And it was $4.19 in Lawton yesterday, according to Bill. So I should be able to get it for around $4.15, $4.14, maybe Monday after I get my work done on it. I'll go over to Lawton and fill up, get ready for Tuesday, because I'm sure I'll be back at it Tuesday with another marathon week of moving trailers, which is what I need. It's what I'm hoping for. This is Comanche, so I'm getting really close to home. 23 miles from the house right here. But wasn't that stone house cool back there in Stoneburg? That's just one of the neater things. You can see somebody was really inventive in putting that place together. So I think people used to be allowed to be more inventive with stuff like that. Nowadays you got all these building departments and codes and all this you got to abide by. They'd never allow you to build something like that, I don't think. And yet some guy built it and it's still standing, 100 and something, who knows how long that's been there, 100 years, 200 years. It's been there a long damn time. And the walls are still standing, so he did a good enough job on it. You know, it never got blown over in a tornado, and it stood through, you know, how many decades of, you know, heating and cooling and simmering in the summer and freezing in the winter. And trust me, it gets cold down in there in the winter. I came through last year. It started snowing down there at Bowie, and I was on snowpack all the way from Bowie clear up to the house here in Marlow. So it does, we do get weather here. Not every year, but some years our winter consists of maybe a day or two where you need to put a jacket on. And then other times it'd be like, you know, 20 below zero for 20 days. And we've had both of those things happen here in the last few years. So you just never know. But it's not like that house has just stood, you know, in a static environment. So the guy did a pretty good job building it, I think. I think it's another good commentary on how maybe the government should leave people alone a little bit. Let them use a little bit of their own ingenuity to do things instead of having everything dictated like we're a bunch of morons. But that's not the world we live in anymore. You know, the world we live in now, we have to be instructed on how to do everything, and we have to be not only instructed on it, but we have to be monitored, and everything we do has to be rubber stamped and approved by the government in order to be considered legitimate or valid. And I think it's a sad freaking commentary that, you know, the freest country in the world, we're so overburdened with monumental bullshit called bureaucracy and red tape for things that the government really should stay the hell out of. You know, it's not really their business, a lot of it, but they make it their business because it justifies their existence. You know, that's the thing about bureaucrats. They get a little bit of power and they just want more of it because that's their bread and butter. It's kind of a natural deal. I mean, I don't think they start out being evil people, but I think it turns them into evil people. So now you know right where I stand on that, huh? So I just don't like this deal about, you know, the government controlling us from the cradle to the grave, but that's what they exactly want to do, and they've said so. They believe that they know what's best for us over and above anything we might think or believe. And they want the authority to lord it over us and to punish us if we don't abide by what they think we should do. It's too bad, you know, that it's gotten to that point. That the world has changed a lot just since when I was a kid. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and we really didn't have that much government interference. There was already some shady crap going on, like with certain city councils and stuff. If they didn't like your business, they might put a median in the street in front of your business so that people going one direction would have a hard time turning into your driveway. There was stuff like that happened, kind of a local level interference and kind of gotcha bullshit. People did to each other if they didn't like each other. Say maybe somebody didn't get along with city council and they didn't want to renew their liquor license or something. They'd screw with people like that, but it wasn't to the degree it is now, where it's just, the government is ever present in every day, in every activity of our lives, and it's just, it's really bizarre. What's even more, what's the worst thing about it to me is the fact that people just accept it and think, oh, well, that's just how it is. Well, that's not how it has always been, and it doesn't have to be that way, and it should not be that way. If you think about being, a free human being, you shouldn't have to ask the government for permission to live. You shouldn't have to ask the government for permission to build your home or to do other things like that. It's just like, they've perverted this whole deal and really turned our government structure from top to bottom into just a big nanny state where, they don't want you doing anything on your own. They want you sucking at the government teat so they can control you, and that's basically what it's all about. And not to get too political on it, because but just pointing out that this is how the world is now, and it's all screwed up. It's really messed up. The world doesn't have to be this way. The world can function fantastically without all this government interference, at every level, at every turn. There's no need for it. The only people who need that are the bureaucrats who make their living being bureaucrats, and it's their bread and butter. So, the rest of us don't need that crap, but we're paying for it. That's the other thing about government bureaucracy. They're running a tab at our expense and then coming to us with the bill, but they're doing things that limit our ability to make the money that they want to collect from us. So they make it more difficult for us to earn $1, but then they come to us with the bill saying, well, this is your share of this bill because you've benefited from our expertise telling you how to do everything. And it's like, well, I haven't really benefited. You've actually stood in my way and you've hampered me from being able to do it. But, I guess I got to pay the bill. You say so. We have very different perspectives, bureaucrats and taxpayers. We're just, polar opposites. And I just don't know. I'm not sure how we turned into such a nanny state anyway. I don't like it. I can tell you that. I think it's a bunch of crap that I don't know. Short of people who believe in independence and liberty getting involved in local politics and going in and getting rid of all this stuff at the local level and then working up from there, I don't know how to fight it. What else do you do? So I guess that's what you do. Get on the school board or get on your city council or whatever, and then, vote against all this stuff. Vote to abolish the stuff that's unnecessary. Get it up on a vote on the city council. Well, do we really need this law? Well, no, because this is already covered under that. Well, then good, let's get rid of it. I'd have a lot better feeling about government if there was ever any retraction of laws, but it doesn't seem like there is. It seems like there's only additions to laws. And that's at every level, from the feds right on down to the local city governments. And I can say that with pretty much certain firsthand knowledge and authority, because as a former cop, I was privy to all those laws. I had a book of state regulations that was thicker than the Bible. It was about 2 inches thick, I reckon. It's called the Blue Book, and it was for Colorado. It was all the statutes that were applicable to the state of Colorado in a condensed version that I could carry in my cop car so I could look up and see what law you were breaking if you did this or that. Then I had the municipal version, which was the municipal laws and the traffic code, local traffic codes. So, I mean, we're very law heavy, and I believe in laws. I believe we have to have laws, and I believe that they should be equally enforced, but the problem is they're not. I mean, we're seeing this play out on the national stage right now. Same kind of thing we've known about in little towns for forever. You know, the favored son, you know, the mayor's kid, or, you know, chief of police's kid or whoever can do something bad. Well, they don't really get into a scrape because their dads, you know, get them out of it. Oh, well, he's a good kid, he just made a mistake. Well, they never get prosecuted or whatever. But you get another kid in town that's not somebody's, you know, not somebody influential's kid. They get the book thrown at them. Well, now we're seeing this on the national stage with, you know, Donald Trump, with them then going in and raiding his house. And yeah, I'm going to use the word raid because cops do use the word raid, in spite of what the mainstream media would have you believe. I know because we used the word raid when I was a cop. So when you do something like that, it's a raid. I'm surprised they didn't go in there with flashbangs and kick the doors. I guess they probably didn't have to because, you know, somebody was nice enough to open the door for them. But you've got, you know, you've got everybody going after Donald Trump, and they've investigated this man for what, 7-8 years now, and they haven't really found anything he's done wrong yet. So I don't know what they think they're going to find. But, you know, I mean, if they find something, they find something, but I don't know what they think they're going to find. And what I heard about the search warrant contents was it was so vague, I don't even know how it got approved, because to get a search warrant approved, you actually have to have facts, you have to have probable cause, not just speculation and vague bullshit, which I think the judge that signed off on that's going to be in deep water, deep hot water, once it's all said and done. But on the one hand, you've got how they're going after him. On the other hand, you've got, you know, Hunter Biden, who's, you know, a ne'er-do-well, let's just say, who's committed a lot of crimes. We know he has because he documented it on his laptop and made it public, posted it all over the internet. So we know he's a criminal, and they won't even touch him because he's the, you know, the favorite son. He's the president's son. So, I mean, it's a very different standard, and it's reminiscent of what goes on in small towns. It's just that at a higher level. And this is the first time we've seen this really on the, well, no, it's not either, because it was very similar with Teddy Kennedy back in the 60s at Chappaquiddick, when a lady that was in his car drowned when he drove off a bridge into the bay drunk, or whatever, the river, whatever it was he drove into. And he didn't suffer too bad of consequences for that. So it was a similar deal. But you know, it's like at this point, we're just so overregulated and so burdened by all these laws that if somebody really wants to find a crime in something that you've done, they can probably at least construe it. If they can, you know, just figure out a way to lay it out and make it sound like, you know, this is maybe something you intended. So that's part of this that nobody's talking about, is intent. In order to commit a crime, in a lot of cases, you have to have the intent to commit that crime. You can't just bumble into something and, you know, like slip on a banana peel and fall into something and then call that a crime. Now, people use the excuse to get out of being charged with a crime often, that, oh, I just slipped and fell in it. Well, you know, that may or may not be true, but if honestly they just slipped and fell in it, that's not a crime. That's part of the component of proving a crime. You have to prove each part of the crime. So there are different parts of crimes that are made up. So I'm not sure what they're trying to get, Donald Trump on, and I'm not sure what all they would get Hunter Biden on. I can think of a couple things that he's kind of made public that he did that are not legal, but they're not going after him. So that's the thing. If you're not the favorite son, if you're not, the golden child, then you don't get treated the same. And it's kind of something we've seen a lot at the local level for decades, but now it's rising to the national level. So I think it's just something, a natural progression maybe, but it's frustrating nonetheless. It's frustrating at every level. If you see somebody going around and getting away with stuff with impunity, and they're dirty, and then you see somebody else who's just being hammered with one accusation after another, and then nothing happened, and they come up with nothing, and all the accusations have been, crying wolf. But at some point you just kind of go, okay, this is all bull. These people got nothing. They're fishing. They're throwing everything they got at the wall and see if anything will stick. And so that's kind of, I think, how it's going with Trump right now. And I don't think anything's going to stick, because I don't think he's done anything. I think he was sincere about the stuff he was doing. And I'm not like 100% a Donald Trump person either, so, don't get that idea. So I think a lot of his troubles are self-inflicted, because he's got an abrasive way of trying to answer every slight, no matter how slight. I think that got him into a lot of trouble on Twitter and all that. So he couldn't just let something go. He could have risen above the fray and just ignored a lot of the stuff that was going on, but it got to the point where they were just baiting him, and they were enjoying doing it. And he showed his ass. I mean, they'd get him going, and he'd perform, like they wanted him to do. He'd blow his top and say something mean, make a mean tweet. But at the same time, the guy, that's just who he is. He's always claimed to be, you punch him, he'll punch you back. So I wonder how all this is going to all work out in the end. It's kind of an interesting little drama going on here between the crazy loony left and the conservative center, and then the crazy loony right. I don't think there's a left center anymore. I think they've all been absorbed. I don't know, it's just kind of bizarre. It's a strange deal. But it's a very strange world we're living in right now. Interesting, but strange. I'm not even sure how I got off on this topic, so. And I don't have really any resolution. I'm just, conjecture. Just thinking out loud, more or less. Thinking about it. But the main point being, this isn't the same world we lived in when I was a kid. It's in some ways similar, but it's like it's taken a left turn at really bad and gone all the way down the toilet, just in the past few years. I'd say since about 2000, it's just gone to hell. So, I don't know. I guess, stay tuned. We'll see what happens next. That's kind of what I'm doing. So what's happening next for me is I'm just about home. I'm 11 miles from the house. I'm going to abruptly change the topic again. How do you like that segue? I'm still on Highway 81. I'm heading north, and I'm on the north side of Duncan, Oklahoma. And not too far up here, I'll cross over into Marlow. And I am so happy to be this close to home. So I just hope the truck doesn't break down before I get there. I don't think it will. It's been running really good. It's been running strong. And like I was saying earlier, it's been running better. Every day that I drive it, it seems like it's running better. So I don't know if it just needed to be run. I mean, it's a machine, and the more you use a machine, as long as you're taking care of it, I think the better the machine functions, because it keeps all the parts oiled and moving. It's kind of like us, you know, you stop moving, you get all froze up and crippled up. Well, I think machines are kind of similar in that sense, that if you don't use it much, it sits and kind of stagnates. Well, I think this truck's been sitting a long time, and once I got it out and started running it, because I've put 4,000 miles on it since I bought it, and it's starting to kind of get in a groove now. I can feel it. The motor's running smoother. It's kind of got a nice hum to it. Before it was, I don't know, it was just sounding a little choppy and a little rough, but it's now like smooth as butter. It's really feeling good, nice and strong. The first trip out, I had a little more trouble climbing hills pulling a load, but I was pulling a much heavier load than anything I towed this week. I was pulling 10,000 pounds worth, or almost 11,000 pounds. 12 is the limit on this, 12 is the maximum. I didn't have anything this week over 6,000 pounds. So even running uphill, I did real well. I wasn't like losing power very much. A little bit maybe on the steeper hills, but nothing concerning. So I'm actually really extremely happy with it. I think I got most of the bugs worked out. I've got kind of my setup that works for me as far as the stuff to bring with me and how things are laid out. There's not much I can do about the cab being really tight and not having much leg room, short of changing out the seats. And you know, at some point I may do that if I can figure out a seat configuration that would give me more leg room. I'd be open to that, but I don't know even where I would begin on that. I guess I could just order a new seat for it and take these seats out, and I guess I could put in bucket seats and build a console in the middle, which may be an option actually, but not right now, because I got to earn back some money to pay back the bank, and then once I get the bank paid back, then I'll worry about doing that kind of thing. But that's actually something I might think about, like putting a better quality seat in here that's not quite so big and bulky, and that would give me a little bit more leg room. So something to think about anyway. I'm going to mess around with the idea, figure out if it would even be feasible. Because, I mean, if I'm going to do that, I might as well put bucket seats and have a nice console with some more storage in it and get some of the stuff up out of the floor, which would actually make sense to do. So we'll think about it. So I'm going to be bringing it back here, right to this spot, Monday morning to get these tie rods looked at and get the alignment checked. Like I say, I think the alignment's fine on it. It feels good. It's not wandering either way. Not doing anything funky. Almost home. 7 more miles. Thank goodness. I'm ready to be home. I've been gone too long. So I guess my mission this weekend is try and get that Dodge sold. I'm going to drop the price on it and repost it. See if I can't get rid of it. Been having a heck of a time finding the right price for it. I think I'm getting closer. I've had a couple of inquiries, but I think I still need to drop it a couple thousand. But you know, such is the problem with selling something that's used, that's commercial, because you don't really know exactly where to price it at. So I thought I was about in the right range when I dropped it the last time. I dropped it to 31,000, 31,900. I'm gonna have to get it under 30 and then I think it'll go. But I hope it will anyway. Have to see. I mean, it's only worth what it's worth. I'd like to get as much obviously out of it as I can, but at the same time I don't want to spend the next 6 months trying to get it sold. I'd like to do it, you know, within a reasonable amount of time. So I don't want it just to sit and get older and the value go down even more. So that'll be my first objective tonight when I get internet access. And then tomorrow, I guess we're going to cover the bed with steel because that bed liner that he put all over the back of the truck is not working at all. In fact, I tore it up more today. So it's just not a good thing to have back there when you're hauling gooseneck trailers, because it's inevitable that you're going to drag a gooseneck trailer over that bed. See, even when you think you got them cranked up, and I had somebody watching too. I thought I had it cranked up high enough, and so did they. The back end on this sticks up a little bit. It's got airbags on it, and so it still caught and dragged a little bit. Well, if we got steel plate back there, it's not going to tear anything up. It's just going to drag on this steel plate, but with that bed liner, it just rips it up. So it's just a bad thing to have back there. I mean, like in another application, it'd be great. This application, it's not. So I'm sure that's going to consume most of this weekend. Fortunately, I don't have much left to do in here, so that's good. I mean, I've done everything in here I can do pretty much, short of changing out the seats, and that's going to be that's probably going to be my next project, is getting some better, a little bit more comfortable and less bulky seats in here, I think. So we'll see. Anyway. All right, well, I'm going to sign off. Thank you for riding with me. I appreciate it. I hope you're enjoying the better video quality. I think this camera's working out pretty good. And I guess just thanks for riding along, and I'll see you next time.